wake up this morning. And this particular conversation excites me because we're going to be looking at the role of our foundations and non-profit organizations in our communities. What are we supposed to be doing with that section? Is it 83? That section 83 certificate.
I think it is. You took it there, girl. Okay.
I did.
Yeah,
I
you did. Okay.
Well, that not so unfamiliar voice happens to be Penny Lebyane, who's a multi-award winning broadcaster, producer, and health activist with over 2 decades in South Africa's media landscape. She has used her voice courageously to advocate for mental health, women's wellness, and social justice. Penny is collecting that penny and has recently been appointed head of communications at the Colin Mashawana Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to restoring dignity to the elderly, people living with disabilities, the orphaned and vulnerable children. In this role, she becomes the public voice of a foundation that has quietly but powerfully transformed lives for over a decade. In this conversation, we're exploring why foundations matter and how community-centered wellness changes lives and how individuals and families can reach out for help. Penny Lebyane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's section 18A.
Section 18A.
18A.
Okay, I better remember this for myself. You just hooked me up.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to your listeners across the beautiful continent.
Across the world.
Across the world now.
Yeah.
Love
the funny
it.
thing is that we actually thought that it was continental, and then we looked at the stats, and this is across the world. We have listeners in Europe,
I love
Australia.
That. Hello, I'm looking for a radio show. Hello, I like that. Thank you.
So first of all, congratulations on your role, stepping in as head of communications at the Colin Mashawana Foundation. What did that mean for you?
I think there's that saying that we get by with the help of our friends.
Okay.
So, when you've worked with your friends over time and when your friends have given you opportunities or you've supported your friends through initiatives and you all bring different skills, I'm sure you have friends who ask you to MC their weddings, their family funerals, write and then you're just like, guys, this is my job. Hey?
Yeah.
I should be paid for this.
Yes.
So you do that with them, but then it gets to a stage where the thing that they do is also so big for them to just get by, and then they're like, we have this opportunity. Do you think you know someone who can do this? And then or we're thinking you might be interested, and you're like, well, I do know some people, but I also do know you guys, so maybe I should, so it came about really from being a supporter of the foundation for over the years, from when it started, to championing for them when they do events, showing up for them, posting, taking part in the campaigns, emceeing events, and really just being one of those people who's a public silent partner, to support the activities of the foundation. And then I went with them for the first time to Venda this past December to actually do the 3,000 elderly people's Christmas drive. And I spent 3 days there, from getting the food to packing it to going through the villages and the names of the elderly who are going to be there, to dealing with young people who are going to be ushers, to running the production and the stage and running with the team, like really being on the ground. And it was such a overwhelming, amazing, heart feeling. Like literally, I think after we finished, the following day on Monday, I just sat in my hotel and I just wept.
Aww.
I literally wept of the fullness that I felt of like being there, seeing these old people in the stadium, eventually from the first ones to the last one to getting the package to like, mix up of names, all the logistics around it, and you just like, yeah, we did that. And so when the offer came, I accepted because I was like, yeah, this is something that I should be doing.
Also, normalize saying yes.
Yeah.
We should normalize like saying yes to such things. I mean, being head of comms, you are responsible for the reputation. You're responsible for public perception. You're responsible for the self-sacrifice of the CEO. I mean, the head of comms is essentially, when I think about it from a political sense, you're like the chief of staff.
Ooh. Okay,
You're like the Cyrus
okay.
Bean to Fitzgerald.
To Fitzgerald.
To Fitz.
This is the girl who watches the TV. And she knows these shows.
I'm really glad you caught that. I was hoping that you'd catch me.
All right.
But you're the Cyrus Bean, you know. A lot of people see the CEOs, and I'm not taking away from the CEO.
Yeah.
I think, you know, they're doing a great job. But really, as comms, you are the the mitochondria of the foundation.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on the sacrifice, the self-sacrifice that comes with working for foundations. Already entrepreneurship has its own, giants and the self-sacrifice there. But imagine now you're a non-profit. So the only thing that you are responsible for doing is making sure that you're pouring back into communities. Talk to me about that, because I mean, going from being a broadcaster where, we work, you get paid, and then now it's like, okay, the focus isn't money, it's people at their core.
So, wow, that's like a loaded question. But it's challenging. It's exciting, and yes, it comes with a lot of applying yourself emotionally in ways that you wouldn't in a normal corporate job. But I think I have sort of like done a lot of work in championing for like NGOs, and I've always felt that, and from a media perspective, where I felt that, I wish a lot of like people like myself who have got media acumen, who understand the media space and, could be part of NGO spaces, organizations that are for greater good, and then that we bring those stories to the fore, to the media, and that information gets to the general public, because there's so many good stories, but they never make it, because you know what happens in the newsrooms, you know what happens in editorial, and we come from a history and a perception in media that good news doesn't sell.
Yes.
And then I've always felt like, good news goes a long way. And then what we focus on becomes bigger. If we focus on negativity, that's all we're going to have. And then I've tried, like in my radio work and television work, to be really that kind of a voice who brings those kind of conversations. So I look at it, I apply that in this position. Yes, it comes with this title. That sounds, I mean, I never knew that everybody really cares about titles until I'm called head of comms everywhere where I go. Yeah. I'm called hi, head of comms. Yes. I'm like, guys, wait,
Cyrus Bean, trust me.
I'm like, guys, okay.
Yeah.
Is this, but you realize that actually people obviously respect titles and positions and things like that, but also it's the responsibility that it comes with. So I've gotten to work with the chairman of the Colin Mashawana Foundation for years. So, they've always bounced ideas off me. We've always sat and shared ideas like, okay, this is what we're doing for Brick by Brick campaign. Okay, 40-40, get 40 friends. And so I've always been part of that. So I feel like I just elevated with a title to a public platform. I was doing that as a friend, as a colleague, as someone that I've known for a long time, with the family, that's type of stuff. Like I'm saying at Vendor, I was saying, this is how the production is going to run. This is how, so now I'm just, I can do that with confidence of like, for some of the team members, like, why is this one giving instruction? That kind of stuff. But more than anything else, outside of obviously that with the team itself, it's the perception. And I mean, knowingly, everyone knows about some of the challenges that the foundation went through late last year. So it's about how do we turn a new leaf?
Yeah.
How do we focus on the impact of the foundation for the last 14 years? Because this foundation has existed, before what has transpired in the last 3 months, which could have derailed some of the great work that they've done, but also which can be used again by other people like me and you in media to cancel the good work. So it's like, how do you turn the story around? Because the story is bigger than some of those challenges and experiences that they had to deal with.
Yeah. There's, I don't know if you noticed it, and perhaps it was just my philanthropic mind, right? But there was a beautiful message that you are relaying now about servanthood and the servanthood that does not require anything back. And I think with my generation, we struggle a little bit with that.
Are you 1K?
I'm a 1.9.
1.9.
A 1.9. I skipped the 2 by like a couple of months.
Yeah.
But I think we struggle with that. A lot of us, I was reading yesterday on the prosperity gospel, right? And I feel like prosperity gospel is not just something that exists in the church, right?
Yeah.
I think it exists all around. It's
Yeah.
it's a given, shall be given to you. But
Yeah.
we forgot, why don't you just give because it's a command? Why
Yeah.
don't you give because it's a good thing to
Yeah,
do?
yes.
You know, the expectation of always receiving something.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were expected to receive something. You were just available. You were available with your time and your energy and your knowledge and your skills. And you said, here, I can serve here as a friend, as a colleague.
Yeah.
But look at how it serves you.
Most definitely. And I think, being raised on those values and holding on to them no matter what, because that holding on to those values also is very costly.
Yeah.
Because you walk around in the world that I'm going to give my best, I'm going to give in here. And we're living in times where people, because they don't hold on to those noble values, they see it as, some interpreters like you're people pleasing. Some interpreters like you're trying to be better. Some people are threatened by, where do you get that so much to give? Why don't you ever run out? And when you walk with that mindset and that kingdom principle, if we want to apply it that way, to say that I treat people the way I'd like to be treated, I do as I'm doing unto God, I serve, I do my best, like if I'm sweeping here, I'm going to be the best sweeper, if I'm cleaning windows, I'm going to be, because you applying it's excellence, it's an attitude, it's a spirit that I carry, and you do that, and you get to a place as well in life where you say, oh my goodness, I'm being doing and so much, and then you question yourself. I also went through that. I went through that where I said, God, okay, these values of yours are very nice, but we live in a world where people take you for granted. For what, what must I eat? Where are my rewards? Where's But I think that's training. That's the training that I've had. I've volunteered for so many organizations. I've worked with so many organizations, and yes, some pay me, or some they haven't honorarium, sometimes open opportunities for me. So I always feel like it's always been coming back to me one way or the other. The grace of God that comes with that is what has kept me. It was has given me longevity. It was what has given me insight. It's the
Great
best training. Sorry?
Great skin.
Great skin. The great skin. Well, I guess it comes with that too. But it also has kept me grounded. It has kept me on the prize. The prize as a broadcaster, as a communicator, is you have a platform, you represent a people, you carry their messages, you articulate their challenges, you go find out information on their behalf, you come and you share, and then you challenge the status quo, you critique to build, you grow with people. You don't walk and live in your ego. So it taught me all of those things. It also forced me to look within, to spend a lot of time reflective, to appreciate what I have, to see adversity and challenges as an opportunity for growth. So I think it's a culmination of a journey, that I've been on. I think some of it is also things that I thought, I want to do this when I was like in my teens, in my 20s. Also we're in an industry where people write you off. When I started, they said, beyond 30, no woman is going to be in media. What are you going to do? You need to find some guy, marry off, and go be someone's wife. And I was like, and then what happens to my career? And then it's in your 30s. Fuji, you're not married, you have children. So
there's always a goalpost.
There's always a goalpost, but God has been good, and His grace has been sufficient that you basically you surpass all the standards, in the system disqualifications that they set for you, and you just keep going by the grace. And here I am, I'm approaching 50, and I feel like I have another new beginning, and I've had so many other new beginnings where they're like, people say, oh my God, she makes a comeback. I'm like, no, I've been here the whole time. I never left. You just did something else, or you have not been in the frequency of the things that I'm doing. Because with radio, if you're not on this station, people think you're not on radio. If you're not on this, and I'm like, no, you're in different places, but you're still doing the work that is required of you, that you're called to do. So it's a great opportunity.
It really is. I wanted to take a short break. When we come back, I want us to get into some of the challenges of running the foundation. Yeah. You did touch on them, and I feel like it's important to share the real story of running a nonprofit. Already, entrepreneurship, I feel like, receives a lot of light, and we romanticize it a lot. But really, when you are running a nonprofit, it's a whole different ball game. Yeah. So I want us to get into those chats, and also let me know how you're feeling about the conversation. If you have any questions, at Channel Africa 1 is where you can find us. It is 7:42 Central African Time, right here on the Oasis.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
When you have to wake your neighbors up. Good morning, my neighbors!
Have you ever considered this scenario?
Where you are hosting a party.
Let's say maybe you're getting married. You are in your pretty dress, or you have a 21st birthday, or maybe a 50th birthday. And then there comes that friend of yours who looks prettier than you, dressed prettier than you, and everybody pays attention to them. Well, this scenario actually transpired. I remember it was the inauguration of Ghana's president, John Mahama. So, invited a couple of dignitaries, and the one that stood out was the Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré. He arrived there and received the loudest cheers at the event. Imagine that. You know what the moral of the story is? Ask
everybody that you've invited to dress in black and white. Yes.
The Shy Guy.
See, people who have something to look forward to don't need an alarm clock.
You listen to The Shy Guy. 3 to 6 a.m. on the Morning Switch.
6 decades of rhythm, resonance, and relevance. We are Channel Africa, the African perspective. Ease into your weekend morning. It's the Oasis with Ntsako Mhlanga. Only on Channel Africa.
7:44 Central African Time, 16 minutes to go before we head to the top of the hour. And for now, we are having a lovely conversation with Penny Lebyane, who is now, and I'm going to say, head of comms. Give black women the titles they deserve, please. We worked. We worked. But you're also a multi-award winning broadcaster, producer, and health activist. So we speak a lot about the goodwill work. And there's a reason why I want to have this conversation, because I think the media, but also public sector, has played a bit of a negative hand when it comes to the perception of foundations. I think the relationship that was supposed to be established between organizations and foundations and public sector, and kind of working together in order to get the message across and do the good work, I think that has been tainted by certain systems that I don't think accommodated foundations. How important is it, especially as head of comms, it's to navigate that, navigating the perception of foundations? You're stepping into quite a challenging role. You're going to have to speak for a lot of things that take place in the media and foundations. So, what role, or rather, how do you feel about that, and generally how foundations are portrayed in the media and through public sector as well, and their contribution to it?
I think it's a mixed bag. For us as South Africa, I think we come from a space, pre-90, in the dawn of democracy, where a lot of NGOs and NPOs played a crucial role in the democracy of South Africa. If you lived in any township across the country, from like church organizations, from taking young people to school, to university, to feeding schemes in the township, like Malibese, for example. I grew up with that. It's the African child feeding scheme. It's always been there in the township, before kids were even fed at schools by government. like, what used to happen. Father Chuckleson, who gave opportunity to people like Hugh Masekela to be able to get a trumpet and play overseas. So those were NPOs and NGOs, and then you can't forget the anti-apartheid movement for raising funds, across the world for our stalwarts and struggle heroes who are in jail and people who are living outside of South Africa. So that's the highlight of where we come from and the foundation of it. And then, organizations that were like Young Women's Network that became the precursor of the Gender Commission today. They submitted the information of like what we want, gender equality to look like. So those were on the ground, whether it is organizations like Johannesburg's Gay Alliance, that influenced where we are right now with the work that Bev Ditsi, and her compatriots in the late 90s and it did, so that we can have, the kind of inclusivity that we have as a nation. Drafting of the Constitution, Black Lawyers Association, all of those are NGOs. It's a group of people who are in different fields, who have skills, who come together, and some of them, went to the public sector themselves. And then we get into democracy. And then there's international NGOs that also start coming to the country because they have interest in investing in the country. And then you can see that some of those activists are now polarized, are being divided according to who's paying who how much money and what agenda is being pushed and influenced. And that's where the headbutts come in because you have some activists who went to public sector, you have some who went into government, and you have some who went into business, and then some became bourgeoisies, and everyone is like, we were zabalazing, but now there's money, and right there's an infiltration of the value system of what everything that we have has been built on. And as you correctly say, then there's a generation who doesn't have, I'm very one of the most luckiest people, I believe, because I can be able to connect generations like that because I know what happened prior to 1990 because I read up on it and I followed up on it and I used my media skills as early as 15, 17 when I got into media to actually continuously look for that. I'm continuously looking for, impactful people in the townships. I'm continuously looking for that person who does good. I'm continuously looking for someone who's helping a child who comes from a poor family but is very smart, I'm continuously looking for that. So I got to work with Love Life. I got to work with SADC. I worked with Love Life when they first came into the country, when they launched their first campaign aimed at young people, Imagine an AIDS-free generation. That's 30 years ago, and I got firsthand to understand why the Kaiser Foundation is in the country, why President Mbeki agreed to that, why do they need me and other young people to be on the advisory board, why the Zulu King was on the board, why Judy Nokwedi, who was an activist who at the time was heading Love Life, as a public sector, expert who has lived in Australia, is coming to South Africa and sharing her skills, why she was the CEO. So I understood why that speaks to policy development, and so you can imagine I'm working on radio, I'm dealing with a manager who doesn't know what I'm talking about. It's coming from a FSMG. They were in marketing. They're like, what are you talking about? You want to give free airtime to the Nelson Mandela Foundation. I'm like, because Mandela Day is about all of us rallying. Oh, you think SABC Foundation, is important? Why are you... Guys, we are in the SABC. We are about public policy. So it's so the thing that gets lost is exactly that. Is people who are in positions who cannot connect the dots, who don't understand what the bigger picture is. And then I think those of us who are in media who understand, we need to cultivate that. But the same way that people who are in media who are in alliance with international donors and NGOs, who, whether we know it or we don't know it, could be part of derailing the story of South African democracy. And whether we are conscious enough to see it in the physical, if you're discerning, you can see that there is a systematic thing at play. And when you don't have a title called head of communications and you talk like this on Twitter, some people will say, what is she high on today?
I've seen some of that.
You've seen some of that, But when but also sometimes people forget that when you are in a position of influence, you don't need a title, and also when you are in a position of influence and you have affiliation with different organizations, that's what gives you authority to. But people think authority sometimes is the title, and there's those misconceptions and all sorts of things. So for me, I feel like it's an exciting an interesting time because also media is going through a very interesting thing where ethics are gone, where the basics of writing and reporting, right of reply, writing a story, when the story is developed and you consistently write on the same angle that this story has moved on and you don't want to move on because you want to hammer on the point a point in the narrative that you want to build, on a particular person. So it's those kind of stuff. And media training, it's not everybody knows what that is, and we also live in times where, everyone has a camera, has a phone, can tweet, and there's AI, and they can write anything, and suddenly before you know it, no one checks their credibility. They have no track record, and then they're on the primetime news and speaking like they know facts.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a very interesting time. But I'm grateful that I have evolved with broadcast as a medium. I've evolved with communication and the technology of communication. I'm a kid who had to learn MS-DOS, went for classes to learn MS-DOS at the Carlton Center, to understanding what a floppy disk is, to learning how to use a computer, to coming into studio and then you have to press all these buttons, to emails coming in, from faxing to emails, random access memory, all of those things, so I've grown with that. And I just feel like I'm at the level now where I can speak with authority, with that confidence, given the opportunities that I've been given. So I think I'm going to draw from that. And I also want to, be in a space where I can interact with a lot of young people to say, what gives you room to grow and longevity is actually being interested in the issues and using these platforms and the technology to advance the cause. I mean, earlier on, I said to you, oh my God, so this is a whole African thing. You said, no, we're global. And that's exactly what it is. Everything we do now is global. So if you are uttering and tweeting something here in South Africa, does it represent the reality of South Africa, and does it build a story of South Africa in the long run? And also when we compare you, Ntsako, with your age mate in Ghana, in New York, in China, are you holding your fort? Now, I want to be able to sit in New York and not doubt myself when I'm talking to the American girls. And I've done that. When I go to Kenya, when I go to Ghana, I'm on par. I might not have education system qualifications, but when it comes to speaking to issues on the ground about South Africa, you can't touch me. And I'm definitely solid because I've spent my time doing the work, and I'm open to learning all the time.
2026, I don't know if you guys have sat down and ironed out the strategy for the year. What are we leading with this year? What is our head of comms going to be leading us with? What can we look forward to, especially where partnerships are concerned? There is a spirit of collaboration that has been spreading across businesses and organizations. So we want to keep that alive. And how do we do that?
So, you guys have so much confidence in me. I've just been in my job.
After everything you've said.
I've been on the job for a week, right? So I started working on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I met with my team and obviously re-meeting the team and really understanding who everyone's titles is, doing like the audit of the people that I have in the team, what the requirements are, looking at what has been done in the last 6 months or so. I haven't even gone back. But the reality of it's like I'm hitting the ground running, because one of the things about CMF is that they're always doing something, and it's like, whoa, I arrived on Tuesday. On Wednesday we were going to Soweto to go double check on the disaster that happened in Doornkop.
Yes.
So we were part of working with the city for the funeral arrangements. No, firstly to respond to the disaster, to make sure that the family had mattresses and food after the house collapsed, and making sure that they're housed somewhere, and then they have food, and because it was over holidays and Christmas, the kids have toys, and get them psychosocial support, all of that, and then come back and do the burial. Get into a partnership with one of our partners, Baroka Funerals, to do the funeral with the city. That happens. And then, mind you, everyone is still on holiday. And then on top of that, it's like now we need to make sure that these people have a house. And the chairman likes to say, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a house. And it's all nice there. Yeah. And then the team has to get back. So I arrive. They're going to check the temporary residential unit was being built, and that needs to be handed over on Saturday. So I arrived, and that's what I was working on.
Okay.
Firstly, I'm dealing with a press release of I'm being announced, and then I must deal with the interviews that everybody else wants. But there's a real work that needs to be done in Soweto. So yesterday we were doing the handover of that, and now you know that on Wednesday there was a disaster in Limpopo in Mpumalanga. Yes. Guess what? A team has been dispatched to go there. So the very team that I need to be sitting with and doing
is a team that's already on the ground. Yeah.
So I'm obviously working on the strategy, but the highlight is going back to the relationships that we have, the partnerships that we have, because we partner with a lot of other organizations, as you said, and collaborate from, when there's a disaster. So whether it's government, whether it's private sector, where they need to build a house in a community. So it's to go back and audit some of those. If we said we're going to do 10 houses, did we do 10 houses? There's one house that hasn't been done. How does that affect the relationship? And how do we, do things in the new year? But the big thing as well is that this year the organization is turning 14 years. So we have to plan. Last year, there wasn't a big celebration for the 13th year. And I was telling everyone, I said, that's life. When you turn 13, you are coming of age. Yeah. So you guys were coming of age last year.
You're a teenager.
Now you're a fully fledged teenager. Yeah. No temper tantrums, your emotions, we must channel you now. Now you when you're a teenager, your parents feed you as a child, they give you the values, and then you get to high school and everyone challenges everything your parents said. So now you have to dig deep to ask yourself, so did what my parents told me that I'm beautiful, is it true? Am I confident? Is it true? You have to go inside. So that's what the foundation is going through. Yeah. We have to go back and
guys are in grade 9.
We're in grade 9. Yeah, we're in grade 9.
You're choosing your subjects.
We're about to choose our subject. So now we're like, yes, hope and dignity. That's what we bring. All this other stuff is to derail our message. Growth collective. It means we work collectively with others. So who are we collectively working with this year? So the 14th birthday is definitely, the highlight of our plans for 2026. And then at the end of the year, we have the Christmas drive. So that's the other highlight. And then in between, it's the elderly that we have to build houses for, the orphans and vulnerable children. But when there's a disaster like the one that I'm talking about in Soweto, where these are 29-year-olds, 35-year-olds, they don't really fall within our mandate, but there's a disaster, so we have to mitigate and meet the need. So it's being able to choose those kind of initiatives and be able to identify them correctly. Back to school is another one that we're actually going to be starting with. We want to go to Mpumalanga, and we want to foster more relationships. One of the relationships we want to foster this year is a relationship with traditional leaders. So we want to work with Contralesa. We want to go into rural South Africa. We want to honor and have the ear of the people who own the land. Yes. They're not like me and you here in the city. Those people have land.
They do.
So and one of our areas of focus is access to water. Drilling boreholes. We want to be doing more of those. Food sustainability. We want to look at those chiefs in the villages, community gardens, things like that. And we have a very ambitious chairman, he wants to distribute 4,000 food parcels this coming December.
Very doable.
And then he wants to spread it across, he wants to add 4 provinces before we go to Venda.
Yes.
Now, do you know how far Venda is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all of those things. So we have to reflect on where we come from for the last 14 years, and then we have to do what needs to be done now, and then we have to tighten up for where we want to go in future.
Penny Lebyane, thank you so much for joining us today. We have run out of time. We will share your social medias on our social media platform, but congratulations and all the best. I think they made a great choice.
Thank you. Congratulations to them.
It is 8:01 Central African time. It's time for news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Your headlines: South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa called for an inclusive national dialogue, and Uganda's opposition leader Bobi Wine has rejected Thursday's general election and says he's in hiding. Good morning, I'm Nosipho Zuma. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has told the new members of the National Dialogue Steering Committee to ensure that The much-anticipated national dialogue is all-inclusive and citizens lead it. At least 93 new members will be inducted over the next 2 days at UNISA in Pretoria. The induction follows a handover from the Convention Organization Committee. Ramaphosa says no one should be left behind in the process that is meant to find solutions to the country's problems.
As you carry your mandate out, I ask that you be guided by, firstly, that this dialogue must be as inclusive as possible, leaving no one behind in terms of participation, in terms of the articulation of the voices and the views of our people. Every voice matters. We must give all sectors of our society, every community and every individual the space to determine how we address today's problems and build the South Africa we want for future generations. The outcomes must reflect the collective views of the people of South Africa.
The Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, says fatal crashes deprive families of breadwinners and further strain the public health system. The Labour Federation has welcomed Transport Minister Baba Krisi's call for the amendment of legislation on government's drunken driving policy. The amendment of the National Traffic Act relates to the scrapping of the legal alcohol consumption limit in the country. Over 40% of the 14,000 deaths on South Africa's roads annually are linked to the alcohol consumption. Buselezo Mokwena reports.
COSATU Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks says the Federation fully supports the Minister's call and urged Parliament to act without delay. He says this is needed to reduce unacceptable high levels of drinking and driving on the roads. The Federation says the proposed changes were supported by overwhelming scientific evidence showing that alcohol severely impairs the ability of drivers, cyclists and pedestrians to use roads safely. Buselezo Mokwena, SABC News.
Uganda's opposition leader Bobi Wine has rejected Thursday's general election and says he's in hiding. President Yoweri Museveni has been announced as the winner of the vote. Meanwhile, internet connectivity has been restored in Uganda. The BBC's Richard Gahwe has the story.
Bobi Wine has come out in a video addressing his supporters. He says that police agents who were in plainclothes stormed his residence and he managed actually to find his way out of the residence. So right now he is in an undisclosed location, hiding, saying that he fears for his life. What he says is that his family members are currently under house arrest, but the police have responded to these allegations and saying that they are false. The police spokesperson said that he's currently in his residence and he's free to move.
The Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, completed the latest review of Ethiopia's current financial program yesterday. The move will lead to the disbursement of around $261 million to the government. The East African nation secured its $3.4 billion lending program with the IMF in 2024 as part of a far-reaching economic reforms package that also includes an overhaul of its external debt. Staff of the fund and the government reached a deal on the review, the fourth under the program, last month. There's condemnation of U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on 8 European allies opposed to his proposed takeover of Greenland. Trump insists that the takeover is necessary to encounter security threats from Russia and China. He has announced that a 10% tariff on goods from countries including Denmark, France, Germany and the UK will take effect at the start of next month. The BBC's David Willis reports.
Trump has upped his rhetoric, claiming on social media that the security of both the US and the world rests on Greenland becoming part of the United States. Denmark continues to insist it will neither sell nor surrender the Arctic island that has been an autonomous part of its territory since 1814. And all 8 European nations the president plans to target with the new tariffs support that.
A recap of your top story. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has told the new members of the National Dialogue Steering Committee to ensure that the much-anticipated National Dialogue is all-inclusive and citizens lead it. At least 93 new members will be inducted over the next 2 days at UNISA in Pretoria. Now, for any news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Nosi Posuma.
SABC News.